Cool. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes? I'm used to being like over there, but now I have to stand here so you can actually hear me. So I'm going to confine to my little space. Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan Walsh. I'm an enterprise solution architect at Postman. And today I'm going to be talking to you about API demos that drive innovation. We'll split this into two parts. We'll talk a bit about API demos, and then we'll talk about driving innovation. Following that talk there, that was an amazing talk, this is much more soft skills based. Okay, so we'll just, engineers need soft skills too. That's, that's part of what we do. So, yeah, we'll focus on a bit of that. So first, a bit about me. I've done a myriad of roles over the past 15 years, everything from, IT consultant all the way through business analyst, product manager, solution engineer. Now I find myself in the kind of pre-sale space. But the common thread that's run across every single role and every single job that I've done is demos. And I expect much of it's going to be the same for you. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're a consultant working with a client showing them something that you've built, or a product manager who's written a bunch of Jira cards and you're trying to demo those Jira cards to your developers to try and share those ideas. Demos are an intrinsic part of what we do, and so we need to be able to do them well in order to be able to convey our ideas, okay? Ultimately, it's about being able to take really complicated information, really complex information, and share it plainly with the people that we're speaking to. This is a key piece of feedback that I've been getting over many, many years, is about trying to ingest that information and make the complex really plain. This doesn't happen by itself. Okay, this is not a talent that I just intrinsically have, right? I work at this. I make a big effort to follow the same approach with every demo that I do. The demo approach really does have these 3 steps, and it does seem overly simple, but as long as you're following these 3 steps, you will be able to do excellent demos within the world that you're facing, right? Having preparation, an excellent strategy around delivery, and then a transfer. Okay, so we'll break down these 3 steps. First thing I want to know is how many people in the room are actively demonstrating APIs in your job at the moment. Is that part of what you do? Yeah, so quite a few people. Yeah. Would you keep your hand up if it's mostly internal? Is it to your peers, like the people that you work with? Yeah, and so quite a few internal, external. Okay. Do they mostly look like this? Is this your concept of an API demo? Yeah? And I mean, look, I do the same thing, right? Like if I really want to just quickly bring up a terminal and demonstrate an API, I'll whip up localhost and pipe it through JQ, and there you go, demo done. Fantastic, everyone, let's go. There are a couple of challenges with demoing like this, though. Firstly, this is focusing largely on the technology. Right? This is a technology demo here. And most of the time when you're demoing to someone, the technology is, here or there. What you're really trying to get to is an outcome. Like, you want to know what they need out of the demo, and you want to be talking to that instead. When we talk about technology demos, some really problematic things can happen. I'll give an example. A couple of years ago, I was working for a communications company based here in Melbourne, and we had an opportunity come up in South Australia with a South Australian government entity. And so me and my developer, we worked on this solution for the challenge that they were having, and I was ready to fly out there and go and present it to them. And so I was really excited about the technology, very, very technology focused, and so I flew out there. The challenge that they were having was bullying and fighting in the schoolyard. And the teachers had to deal with the kids actually fighting, but they weren't able to get involved. They couldn't physically go in there and actually solve these problems. So what they were looking for was a technology solution to try and get, lots of people to come, and other teachers, and the National Guard, Defence Force, who knows, who breaks up kids' fights. But our solution was, give them a big red button that they could click, and when that happened, everyone's phones started ringing and bells whistled and alarms went off, right? So we designed this system, and I was super proud of it. And I went in and I got to the demo stage, and everyone was standing in front of me, and there was about maybe 50 people in the room and government representatives and everything, and I said, when I click this button, all of your phones will ring. And I clicked the button, and nothing happened. Complete silence. And so I do the normal demo dance that we've all, become accustomed to. The internet must be failing. It's getting really, really hot in here. And I click the button again, and again, nothing happened. And I had nothing left to give at that point. I wasn't focused on anything other than the technology, and the technology didn't work. So I literally apologized to the 50 people in the room, and I flew back to Victoria with my tail between my legs. It was a really highlighting experience, right? The challenge on that particular one was the principal of that school had asked me an hour before to demo directly to him because he couldn't make the official session. So I took everyone else's numbers out and put his phone number in and did the demo to him, and then I forgot to change it back. Yeah. So, test, But anyway, so the point of that story is when we're doing our demos like this, are we building the belief in the technology, or are we building belief in the outcome that we're trying to achieve? We all love technology. We're engineers, right? But the outcome is more important. If we take this same example and turn it into an outcome-focused demo, I mean, if we look at this JSON object here, we've got a product, it's a set of headphones, it's got a SKU, it's got an image URL, a cost. Like if we just use our powers of deduction, this looks like a product API. So therefore, if I was to revisualize that, that would be a much better demo for that particular API, right? So turning, instead of the JSON object, we're now giving the user something that they want out of this particular API. This is an outcome-focused demo, not a technology demo. So when we're going back to this approach of how we actually do demos, let's think about the first stage of a demo, preparation. This is like, I don't know, at least 80% of my job at the moment, preparation for demos. And the first stage of any demo is learning about who I'm presenting to, learning about my audience. This is massive. I'll often get, salespeople who need me to go out and do a demo. They'll, go down there, it's 2 o'clock, you need to demo these 3 features, go. Is it an engineer that I'm demoing to? Is it a QA? Is it an executive? Like, what do they know? What do I need to know? Like, I need to know more about these people before I can go and do that. And so, essentially, what I'm listening for, when I'm going into these types of sessions, if I get sent into that example, right, if I'm there at 2 o'clock on that day, I will take the first 5 minutes of that session and I will ask them, tell me about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What's part of your role? And tell me about your processes. What do you actually do? How are you doing this today? And as soon as you ask people to talk about themselves and the problems that they're having, they will just tell you everything. Everyone loves talking about their problems, right? And what I'm listening for here is, it's hard because we're limited, we're blocked. Our process is this, but my team can't do that, okay? But we hope to. And these key words are what I'm listening for, right? I'm not even getting into demo stage yet. I'm still in information gathering phase. And I'm trying to understand their desires and how they're feeling at the moment, right? These 2 things are going to be really important for me. The desires are when they say, I can't do something, well, that's easy. You can flip it on the opposite of that. But then when you're listening for them to say, we hope to be able to deliver on something, that gives you some real good insight about what they're trying to achieve. But how they're feeling about it is where the emotional attachment comes. So either they'll be indifferent, we're forced to use this tool, whatever, doesn't really matter, I couldn't care either way, or they will be downright angry and slapping the table saying, I hate this, this sucks, I need a better way. And you can use those 2 things together to move on to the next stage of crafting your narrative. Best case scenario for me, I get to do that initial session with them, which is a discovery session, learning about them, and I'm not doing the demo the same day. I'm learning and taking all of that information, and then I'm going back and I'm talking to my colleagues, I'm doing research, I'm talking to to whoever I can to figure out what the narrative is going to be for that particular demo. Often I can't do that. Often I'm in the room with them, it's, do this now, and so I have to kind of use my experience to come up with what that narrative is. But if you do have the opportunity to organize this yourselves, you should separate your discovery session from your demo session. You give yourself that buffer to create this narrative. So what is the narrative? What should it contain? This is where your discussions with other colleagues, peers, research on the internet comes up. This is thinking about how other people are solving these exact problems that are having. No one's problems are unique. Someone else is already solving these problems. You should be thinking about how your products, how your APIs are solving these problems, and how other people have solved them. How does your product directly impact the need that is going to meet their desire and also, deal with the feelings that they're having. And then lastly, how does your product fit long term into how they're going, right? So you're crafting a story around this. And I think the keyword story is really important here. Your narrative doesn't have to be true. Your narrative can be made up. As long as you're not lying, as long as you're telling a story in a world where they live in and the world that your product lives in, you can craft whatever story you want, as long as it's, you're actively going to be delivering on what you're talking about. And so this also gives you the ability to choose where you focus your demo. We want to think about elements that you're talking and learning from the prospects or the customers or whoever you're working with that are in this prime area for change, right? We're talking about things that are high value and low effort. If you go in there pitching a narrative, pitching a demo that's a 5-year project and it's a massive transformation and it's going to cost $9 million and, it's like, cool, thanks, you will see you next time, right? You need to be talking about quick wins for the people that you're working with, and then you can build from there. So focusing the narrative on stuff that's going to happen quickly and stuff that's going to solve their immediate need and their emotions is where you're going to be working. And so then we get to the point of delivery of this. So you've come back after your discovery session, you're back in, you're ready to do your actual demo this time, which is now an outcome-focused demo with a nice narrative to it, not bringing up a terminal window and showing a local host. And you're going to share your narrative with them as if it's already been implemented. You're going to use the language around this that's using first names of the people that you're talking to. So now, Bob, that you've implemented this solution, you're able to come into work tomorrow and this problem's already solved, the scripts run overnight, and you're in this world where it's already done, it's completed, and you can go about your day job, right? The narrative that you're sharing, you're telling it as if the world is already solved and it's already implemented. And at this point, you're still listening, right? You're going through the process of listening to them, listening to the reactions, and hopefully they're resonating with the work that the narrative that you're sharing, and they're giving you feedback as you're going through this process, okay? A couple of things during this process of delivery to keep your audience engaged. Do the last thing first. This is a huge tip that I've started to use in the demos that I'm working on, and it's a much, much better approach for doing demos. Typically, what we're taught to do when we're at university and we're going through the process of a presentation is we set the challenges that they're facing, and then we go down that process of talking about all the different ways we could do it or whatever, and we slowly build to this massive climactic finish, which is where everything, all of their problems are solved. The problem is, in a lot of these demos, after 30 minutes, 25 of those minutes have gone by before you tell them what they actually want to hear, and they've stopped listening. They've tuned out, they've left the room. If you flip that on its head, and within the first 2 minutes of demoing to these people, you've actually showed them everything that they wanted to see first. You've shown that up front, and you've captured that level of curiosity. Wait, how did you do that? Well, go back, rewind. I want to see that in more detail. That is a much, much better place to start the conversation than having them bored out of their mind for 25 minutes before you get to the point. And yes, as I said before, seeking feedback along the way, making sure that you're constantly on track with what you're talking about throughout your entire demo process. And then the last phase of the demo is around transfer of power. This is a massive part that a lot of people forget when they're in their demos. By transferring the power of the demo to your audience, this is where the true innovation comes in. So you notice the title of my talk was Building API Demos that Drive Innovation. The innovation part actually occurs when you perform this transfer of power. Now what this means is that you give your demo, whatever you've created, to the person who you've demoed to. Because what you want from them is you want them to tell the story, tell the narrative that you've created. You want them to take the demo and demo that to their peers, to their executives, to whoever they're working with. Right? They want, and then potentially even start to integrate some of that stuff into their products. A lot of the time what we do is we share slide decks after a demo. Here's my slide deck. Not once have I ever seen anyone present one of my slide decks, right? They don't get up in front of their peers and say, here's this great slide deck that Jordan did. But when I start giving them the demo, the actual implementation or the tool that I've created for them, they will go and share that, and they will go and show that with their competitors, with their colleagues or whoever else they're working with there. And so what I wanted to do today, in my last little bit of time, was talk to you about some tools that can help you transfer power in Postman. Okay, I do work for Postman naturally, so you know I'm going to show you a couple of these things. Some of these tools you may or may not have seen before. A lot of people use Postman from an API client perspective. That's what it's most well known for. You click send on an API and you get the response back. But the Postman Visualizer is a really interesting way of reframing the data and showing it in a way that is much more useful. So if is that big enough? Can we see that from the back? We're okay, thumbs up, cool. So this get products API that I had in my terminal window just before, right? This was the API that I had available there. Apparently we've got a security issue with that. I'll deal with that later. We've got you know, our ID, our name, our SKU, our description, all of these other fields. But what we're wanting to do is turn this into the outcome-focused demo that we had before. Well, to do that, we've got this option on the side here called Visualize. If you click on that, you can now turn that exactly into the representation that we had before. This visualizer is built using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all within this test tab here. So you have the ability in here to bring in an HTML template. In this particular instance, I'm using Bootstrap, got my CSS, got my JavaScript, and then I've created an ability to loop through all of the items that have been returned in my JSON object and render out a small div that shows exactly what that product could look like. Okay? The nice thing here as well is, you know, I'm using an each statement, so it's going to iterate through. So therefore, if I add some more products to my response, I should be able to see what it looks like when I add, say, 3 products in there. So if I do something like that and save it, now my get products endpoint, if I, go back here and click send, we can see that now my get products endpoint has 3 responses in it. And if I visualize that, we've now got 3 available there. So being able to, you know, manipulate the data in a mock server, show different images, show different information, and going from there, and also giving you the ability to manipulate that in real time. You'll notice I didn't do any deployments there. I just changed it and it worked, right? But it can start to get much, much more sophisticated than just showing some products. This is a Covert Stats Api that was found on Heroku. It hasn't been updated for a few years, but it's still got the same idea. There's a bunch of information in JSON format. If we visualize that, we can start to see some really cool kind of visualization of that information that's just been built off the JSON data, right? And the visualizer can even accept inputs. So if you take this same Covert API information and send this one, this isn't as visual from a flag perspective as we saw before, but what this one has is the ability to actually paginate the response. So we've got all of the information available here with all of the COVID cases in all the different countries, and I can start paging through, you know. So you get to build this within the code in your test tab there. You know, even something is, you know, whatever it happens to be, right? So then now what I've done is I've turned my demo into an outcome-focused demo. I'm no longer talking about the JSON data, I'm talking about what you can do with the JSON data, and I've put it into this world here. Now what we need to do is give this information to the people that we're demoing to somehow. And so typically the way that we could do that is within Postman, you can make it a public API, public workspace. And so in this one here is called the Postman Visualizer. So anyone could just go into Postman and search for Postman Visualizer with a Z, apparently. And you'd find that public workspace there. You guys could all do this now. You could click on this and you'd be able to browse to that workspace. So that's a great way of sharing it. The last way that we're encouraging is people to share it using a Run in Postman button. And so what you can do is you could share that collection via a Run in Postman button, and then they can embed this button either using HTML or Markdown within their documentation, or you can share it with them in that particular way. So if I copy that and just show you kind of what that looks like, I'll just paste it over here and save it. So what you get here is a Run in Postman button that you can put on your website or whatever, you know, you're sharing it with them, and however way you're doing that. They can then click on this particular button, and what that's going to do is allow them to fork that collection into their workspace in Postman, where they can go ahead and start making modifications to it, you know, potentially even taking some of their APIs, using your visualizations, combining it all together, and they get some really good outcomes so they can share those demos themselves, okay? So As I said before, the demo approach is something that I'd like you to take away from this session. The next time you have to do a demo, instead of bringing up a terminal window, maybe ask a few questions, listen to the responses, and then see where you can take it from there. Okay, so I'm Jordan Walsh, and that's my talk today. Do we have time for questions? Not sure if there's any questions on that one, but we've got a couple of minutes left.
The visualizer is part of the free?
Yes, it's free. Yep, you can use this. So the question was, the visualizer is part of the free version of Postman. You can use that today. There's very few things you can't do with that. It supports events as well, so you can have click events, and you know where the mouse is actually clicked. So you can use like geospatial maps, and you can embed leaflet and all that sort of stuff in there, which is kind of cool. I haven't tried forms, like in particular submitting forms in there, but that might work. And it's treated as like an iframe. So if you need to debug in that HTML and JavaScript and stuff, you can use console logs, and you can see the console logs in the iframe of the visualizer. So it allows you to work with it. Cool. All right, thanks very much.